Spooky fam, welcome back to Forgotten Mental Shelf. This is the series where we pick out old horror films that feel like they've been sitting in a dusty VHS bin since the beginning of time. Today's pick is actually one of my favorite movies that I've stumbled upon in the past. You might have seen it once on a warped tape or heard about it being whispered in like horror forums. It's kind of like a half-remembered nightmare. We're talking about Alice, Sweet Alice, a film that blends slasher tension, religious imagery, and psychological suspicion into something that still feels off decades later. And the wild part, this movie came out in 1976, before the big slasher boom really took off. So in a lot of ways, it was ahead of its time, and nobody quite knew what to do with it. If you stumbled onto this in a video store, you'd probably assume it was a small psychological drama or a religious thriller. And you wouldn't be entirely wrong, but what unfolds is something much more unstable. The story follows a troubled young girl named Alice, her younger sister Karen, and a fractured family dealing with jealousy, attention, and escalating tragedy surrounding Karen's first communion. One of the most notable production facts, this was originally shot under the title Communion, but it was renamed Alice Sweet Alice for distribution to avoid confusion and better market it. And that right there kind of tells you about the film's identity problem because even the marketing didn't know what shelf to put it on. It's part family drama, part slasher, part psychological collapse, and none of it sits comfortably together. Now, something important for context. This movie came out in 1976, which is years before the slasher wave finally hit with films like Halloween and Friday the 13th. That makes this one of the early American films experimenting with masked killer tension and stalking sequences. The film features a killer wearing a translucent plastic mask, something that would later become iconic in slasher cinema, but here it feels more raw, less stylized, and I gotta tell you, a little creepy and weird. There is no mythic killer presence, no supernatural framing, just a human figure moving through tight hallways and cramped apartment spaces like something intrusive slipping through reality. One of the strongest elements of this film is the use of Catholic imagery. First Communion isn't just background detail, it's structurally central. Wow, that was a tongue twister. I can't believe I wrote this in my notes. But instead of being treated as sacred or uplifting, it becomes part of a pressure system, judgment from adults, expectation of purity, fear of wrongdoing, and punishment wrapped in morality. The church scenes don't feel comforting at all. In fact, they feel observational, cold, and very frigid. It's very creepy and intentional. This isn't a horror movie about evil breaking in. It's about suspicion growing inside a community that already believes it knows the truth. One of the most effective aspects of the film is how it plays with perception. The character of Alice is constantly framed through other people's suspicion. Is she unstable? Is she misunderstood? Or is she just being unfairly projected onto? The film refuses to stabilize your opinion. The ambiguity is one of the defining traits and one of the reasons it still gets discovered and discussed in cult horror circles today. It's less about solving a mystery and more about watching how quickly people commit to being wrong about each other, which is also something that makes the whole film seem so raw and real. Like you can tell, we've seen things like this happen in real life, right? So it really, really gets into your mind and gets under your skin. And this is one of the few films that actually can give me legit chills. So I can't wait for us to watch this film on Spooky Fam Live. I look forward to watching it with you guys. So we have a few facts from production and release. So the film was directed by Alfred Soule, who was primarily known for smaller independent work rather than major studio horror. It was shot with a very small budget, which is why it has that gritty and grounded visual texture. The movie initially received limited distribution and didn't gain strong mainstream traction at release. Over time, it developed a cult following through home video circulation and late-night TV airings. It's one of those films that didn't become important immediately, but slowly has earned its reputation over decades. So why does this film still feel unsettling today? Even compared to the modern horror structure, Alice Sweet Alice still feels strange. Not because it's loud or extreme, but because it's emotionally inconsistent in a very intentional way. It shifts between domestic realism, sudden violence, psychological tension, and moral panic. And instead of smoothing those edges out, it leaves them jagged. And that's why it lingers. It doesn't guide you toward comfort or a resolution at all. It just leaves you sitting in the aftermath of people misunderstanding each other too late. And it's just, oh, it's so freaking cool, and I can't wait to do this with you guys. So where does this film belong on the forgotten rental shelf, guys? It's not a mainstream slasher. It's not a polished psychological thriller, and it's not a clean moral story. It's something absolutely messier. A film that feels like it drifted in from an alternate version of 70s horror. One where genre rules hadn't been fully written yet, and maybe that's why it still survives in conversation today, because it never fully became anything, and that's what makes it unforgettable. So, my friends, some horror movies scare you with what they show, but this one, it scares you with how quickly people decide who deserves the blame. Let me know in the comments down below if you have seen Alice, Sweet Alice. If you have or haven't, we will be doing this movie on Spooky Fam Live, so you can go to the live tab and see what date that is. I don't remember it off the top of my head, forgive me, and hit that notification button that you will be reminded to join us for that one. Do you have a forgotten horror movie or thriller movie that you think I should cover? Let me know in the comments down below. You can support the channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing, and of course, all of the donation links are in the description down below, and so are some merch links. Thank you so much for supporting my channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Stay spooky, stay weird, and as always, have a potato.